Hey guys, what's up? It is Finger Guns, and there is a ghoulish problem plaguing the pre-patch right now. I am, of course, talking about the Scourge invasion going on, and it has its issues. It certainly has its issues. I was working on my Exiles Reach video, covering that, giving some thoughts and feedback on that. And the biggest problem with the new player experience right now, and just anybody who might choose to go to Exiles Reach over going through their typical starting zone, is the Ghoul problem. Now, this doesn't just apply to new players or people leveling up characters, but it is the biggest concern for them, in my opinion, particularly during pre-patch. There has to be a failsafe. So there's a couple of layered issues here. The first one is that you leave Exile's Reach, you spawn into Orgrimmar, and then immediately there's just ghouls everywhere. And a lot of other players, especially who are looking to go out of their way to grief you, know that that's where these new players are going to be spawning in. That's where these low-level characters are going to be spawning in. So they stand there and wait, and as low-level characters spawn in, they just die. And there's not really any way to defend yourself, especially at like level 10, because the ghouls just hit too hard and you don't deal enough damage to them to be able to adequately fight back. And on top of that, there's usually a good amount of ghouls running around, so you're not ever really going to make it that far to begin with. There needs to be some sort of fail-safe in place to really prevent this from happening. Either make it so characters below a certain level or characters who had just spawned into Orgrimmar for the first time, maybe phase that and create like a separate instance where those characters can exist. Maybe a temporary instance where after they, go through the steps of completing the quest and that kind of introduce them to the capital city, it very organically phases them back into regular Orgrimmar. At least that way they can get through the quest chain. Because the biggest problem, aside from being murdered by ghouls immediately, the biggest problem is that you are required, I've tested this on the PTR myself, you are required to speak to an Orgrimmar grunt in order to find the stables to go learn how to ride. That is next to impossible during the pre-patch, because all of the Orgrimmar grunts are aggroed to the ghouls and trying to defend the city from the ghouls. So there's, like I said, layered issues here. It also poses a problem for people who need to be in the major city to just do general things. Visit the auction house, do the pre-patch quest line, which I haven't even bothered attempting yet, mostly due to the way that the pre-patch has been down a lot. The world servers have been down a lot. And the other major issue is if I want to experience the pre-patch event and see the story and everything like that, I don't want it to be interrupted by a ghoul running up and eating my face. Like, I want to see the RP, I want to see the story. I'm a huge lore nerd, so if there's an RP event with Lorthamar and the story is being told of why our characters move to Icecrown and end up following the trail of Sylvanas Windrunner, I want to be able to experience it full-fledged without having, to wait till after the pre-patch event happens, at which point it's very likely that they could remove the full-scale event from the game like they did with Battle for Azeroth and the War of Thorns, where the War of Thorns questline was only in the duration of the pre-patch, and then after that it got removed and you only experienced the Battle for Lordaeron, where Battle for Azeroth really kind of kicked into high gear. Something needs to be done about this Ghoul pre-patch event. I think it can be fun. I've played around a little bit with it as a ghoul, going out and killing people. It is a lot of fun to do every now and then for half an hour, just putzing around. But I understand that there's a large portion of the player base who strongly disagree. Now, the Wrath of the Lich King event was canceled midweek for a reason. That happened for a reason. Now, I don't know if a lot of the same developers are on the World of Warcraft team as there were 10, 12 years ago, whenever Wrath of the Lich King launched at this point. But it is important to keep in mind that an event like this did happen on a larger scale, albeit. An event like this has happened in the game before and was canceled midweek because of the player kickback. So something needs to be done about it. I have two major solutions to offer. The first being a simple timer. Put when the Scourge invasion event is active on a timer. Something frequently enough that a lot of the population who might want to experience it can experience it and know when to participate. Not at weird hours of the day where like the Legion invasion, like the Battle for Azeroth invasions that happen, the faction invasions that happen, they're on like really weird set timers. So they could happen like once a day in like a really good time frame when a lot of the player base is going to happen, and then a couple of days later when they happen again, they'll be at like 3 o'clock in the morning when a very, very small percentage of players are on. So you just get this weird timer loop that kind of punishes players who have like a normal life and a steady job and, you know, a family and have all these balls that they need to keep in the air, who can't just be sitting at the desk waiting, oh, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, better get on WoW so I can do my invasion event. No, smaller cycles like 2 hours up, 2 hours down, 2 hours up, 2 hours down, something like that. So players kind of know when they should be aiming to be in the capital city, when they should be aiming to log in to get that done if they want to avoid the ghouls. The second recommendation, which I like a lot less, but this is the one that's been floating around online, especially on the forums, is if you have war mode off, you automatically opt out of the Ghoul event. Now, this technically speaking, like technologically speaking, is much more difficult to do because that means that Orgrimmar has to be instanced in a way that it's never really been instanced before. And I know that I'm saying that, hey, it's like the same exact idea as Exile's Reach, but that instance of Exile, like coming out of Exile's Reach and entering an instanced Orgrimmar can stay in the game. That's a fix that they can add, focused on the 9.0 pre-patch Ghoul event, and it can just remain in the game. There's no really reason to take it out or tinker with it. Now, what you can do, actually, now that I think about it, is you can have that instance of Orgrimmar be the same instance of Orgrimmar where players without war mode on go into. Just one thing to consider. I don't know what is the best. Personally, I really like I personally really like the timer idea. I think that would work out really well for the vast majority of players. But hey, it's a problem. It needs to be solved. This has to be handled before the pre-patch goes live. Otherwise, there will be so much negative player experience that Blizzard might just shut it down after a day or two, and that'll be that. And they'll never play around with these cool ideas again, because it is a cool idea. It is a lot of fun, and the lore behind it is actually really solid, where the Scourge no longer have a leader controlling them, so they're just going on a rampage. But it needs to be in a very controlled environment. Otherwise, people are going to hate it. The pre-patch event is going to go down as a failure, and Blizzard will stop experimenting with neat ideas. That's just my 2 cents and a little bit of some suggestions. Stay tuned for the video on Exile's Reach. If you haven't watched it yet, you can go back and check out my video and feedback on the new heirlooms for 9.0. And if you like this content, if you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell. I am Fingerguns, and I will see you next time with more World of Warcraft news.